Once your company details have been completed, you can move on to the Preferences 1 tab. The first section of the Preferences 1 tab enables us to set up the defaults for costings in the quotes and jobs. The first checkbox, automatically calculate totals. When this checkbox is selected, the auto recalculate button will be selected by default on the costings tab whenever we create a quote or job. And when the auto recalculate checkbox is selected, all calculations will be automatically updated whenever you modify any values within a quote or job. If this checkbox is not selected, then the quote or job totals will not be updated. And this can be used when you wish to manually input the final total of a quote or job, a value you decide upon. You may wish to modify the total of a quote once you know the auto-calculated total, and this total, when input, will not change when you modify values within the quote, so care must be taken when you're using this feature. If the auto recalculate button is deselected, you can select each item in turn and change the final value. And if we enter a value that's less than the auto-calculated value, then we'll get a warning. And it's best to leave this option selected. Only turn the auto recalculate off in a specific quote or job when you want to modify the final total. Otherwise, you may change one value in the quote and the total will not be changed, and you'll have the wrong value in your total of your quote or job. When you select the auto recalculate button, all the totals are recalculated once again. If we go back to the preferences, the same values for all quantities checkbox is selected when you want the same values checkbox selected in a quote or job. And when this is selected, each quantity will have the same markup, discount and freight. So if we go to each of the quantities, we'll see the markup and the freight remain the same. So if we type in 10% here, we'll see that that 10% is the same for each quantity. However, we might want to have different freight values for each quantity. So then we turn off the same values checkbox, select each quantity separately, and then type in a value for the freight. For example. So there, if we go back through each quantity, we'll see each quantity has a different freight rate. In summation, If you enter the values you want across all quantities prior to turning off the same values checkbox, say for the markup, because you'd probably most likely have the same markup for each quantity, then you turn off the same values checkbox, go to each quantity and then type in the value for the freight, depending on what values you want for each quantity. Now returning to the preferences, the freight added after tax checkbox allows you to add the freight prior to calculating the tax or after calculating the tax on a quote or job. And if you subcontract your freight to a freight company and pay per order, you may wish to add the freight cost after the taxed value. If we return to the quote, without freight, the total is $678 with $67.80 tax. If we enter the freight, that is now added prior to the tax. If, however, we click on after tax, we'll notice that's returned to $678. The tax is $67.80, and the $20 freight is added after the tax, making a total of $765.80. Now returning to the preferences, the round subtotal to dollar value checkbox allows you to have the subtotal rounded up to the nearest dollar in a quote. And what this will do is reduce any likelihood of rounding error. So here we've got cents in our total, but then we round it up here at the total, so that then when we do the tax, we don't end up with rounding errors creating a problem for our accounting process. The checkbox item title keywords when checked causes PrintQuote Pro to automatically create keywords from the print item and finishing item titles when you save a quote or job. And these will be included in the list of keywords attached to the quote or job. And these can be viewed on the Keywords tab of any quote or job. So here we have the printing, 3 colour business cards. The finishing item is called the same. When we go to the keywords, we have that keyword automatically added to the keywords that are attached to this particular quote. And we can search for these in the keyword manager at any time. The Check and Rebuild Keywords button causes PrintQuote Pro to remove any unlinked keywords that are unused, and then check all the job description, print job titles, finishing job titles, and creates new keywords if they don't exist. It doesn't remove any keywords that have been created by yourself or any that have already been created. It just does a check and then adds any that have been missed from the job description, print and finishing items. The Open Toolbar on Startup checkbox allows you to have the toolbar appear automatically when you start the program. If you prefer to use the menu or menu shortcuts, you may wish to start the program with the toolbar closed. The last quote number, last job number and last invoice number are numbers of the last quote, job or invoices created. If you wish to start using PrintQuote Pro with a specific quote, job or invoice number, then this is where you can set the number you want. The Get button interrogates the quotes, jobs or invoices and lets you know where they were last set. If you've deleted a quote, then this will be recalculated. The checkbox Manually Modify Job Numbers causes a dialog box to appear when you convert a quote to a job, so you can type in the job number you require. And you may wish to do this if you have another job numbering system in your business and you have already allocated some job numbers to other jobs and you don't want to duplicate the numbers. For example, if you're doing photocopying jobs or some other type of job, and you have job numbers for those in a different system, then when you come back to your next quote and you're creating it to a job number, then you can increment that automatically using this dialog. And you'll get that option when you have the Manually Modify Job Numbers checkbox selected. The Ask to Delete Quotes on Convert checkbox gives you the option of deleting a quote once it's converted to a job. Generally speaking, people don't usually want to delete any of their quotes, so that's just optional. The Display Costs section gives you options to display artwork costs on your quotes and invoices. You also have the option of including film costs on quotes or invoices. And the final checkbox, when selected, displays freight costs on your quotes. The installation code is a letter that is included in the client ID, quote ID and job ID to let you know on what installation of PrintQuote Pro the quote, job or client was created. If you're using multiple installations of PrintQuote Pro, you can identify on which terminal the quote, job or client was entered. The letter becomes the second letter of the ID code. And if you're using PrintQuote Pro on a number of computers, either at home or on laptops used by salespeople in the field who are emailing quotes back to the printery, you can set each to have a different installation code so the computer on which a client, quote or job was entered can be identified. The quote form layout and invoice form layout drop-down menus give you three options for quotes and invoice layouts. The first one is loaded header. This prints your company logo and your company details that were entered on the company tab of the preferences on your quotes and invoices. And if you click on the company logo tab, you can load a JPEG of your company logo to use with the loaded header for the invoices or quotes. The other two versions, the 4 centimetre header, 5 centimetre header, gives you blank headers so that you can use pre-printed sheets to print your quotes or invoices on. The last one, detailed quotes, prints all the breakdown of a job. And that's ideal if you're sending this back to your accounting department to input it into an accounting package so they can see the breakdown of the job. The job sheet layout, there's two job sheet layouts. Job sheet 1 and job sheet 2. Most printers seem to prefer the job sheet 2. I recommend you try both and choose the one that suits your needs. You select your choice, then click on Save to save the preferences, and then print out a job and see whether you like the job sheet layout. Then you can open the preferences, change to the job sheet 2 and do the same, and then choose the one you prefer. And also, if you have a particular type of job sheet you'd like us to incorporate into PrintQuote Pro, let us know and we will review including it in the program. The report from date indicates the default date range in the date range choice dialog box preceding any reports. When you choose to print a report, a date range choice dialog will open with a date from and a date to. And the report date is the number of days prior to the current date you want to select your reports from. So for example, if one was the 30th of June, when you went to your reports, the date from would be the 1st of June.